Welcome to No Clip, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Ruthermond.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about Life is Strange Double Exposure, a game that was developed by Deck 9, published by Square Enix, and released in 2024 on Windows, PS5, the Switch, and the Xbox Series X and S.
But first, if you can give us a like or rating or a subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated.
So, Life is Strange Double Exposure, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Already. We're, 15 seconds into the podcast. It's a narrative adventure game, and it is in the vein of other Life is Strange games. Though I would argue most specifically, it is in the vein of every Life is Strange game that isn't the first one.
Right.
They're narrative adventure games where you choose dialogue options and solve puzzles with the assistance of some kind of supernatural power. That is our mechanical through line for the Life is Strange series as a whole.
Correct. It is kind of hard to know where to start.
It's a little tough, yeah. I do want to... I think saying it as part of the genre declaration would have been getting ahead of myself, but I think we can intro into the thing that I have to say about this game in relation to the other Life is Strange games. Because
Sure.
If you've listened to our other episodes about the Life is Strange games, specifically Life is Strange 2 and 3, True Colors, the third one, you'll know that we have a tendency, and that will continue in this episode for sure, to compare and contrast the games in the series. And there's a thing that struck me as odd about this game that I would like to get your thoughts on.
Sure.
And potentially the thoughts of other people in the comments section. So Life is Strange Double Exposure, I think the thing, you might argue it's the selling point of the game. I don't really know. I'm bad at marketing. Is that Max Caulfield, the protagonist from the first Life is Strange game, is the returning new protagonist in Double Exposure. And that brings the baggage of Arcadia Bay and, certain characterization. One of my first notes, and it's not a thing that I want to get into specifically right now, is that Max it feels like a different character than Max in the first game, because in the first game, Max was more blank slatey. She was tabula or rasa. And in this game, she's an established character at this point. We kind of know what Max is about. So it's a very different vibe, even though it's the same character. But the defining feature of Max in the first game is the defining feature of the first game as an adventure game, which is the ability to make choices, then rewind time, and make different choices based on the results. And I am flabbergasted that mechanic did not make a return in the fourth game. And I understand it. I get it on a creative level. I get it on a narrative level. I get it on a design level. It is harder to make a game where the choices feel meaningful when that mechanic exists. But it makes the first game so completely different in play style than all of the remaining ones that they just feel less unique than the first one did. That's my thesis.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. It is an interesting thing to think about, because that. That's the whole point of the first game. It feels like a deconstruction of the Telltale style of narrative adventure game, where it's what if you could, instead of being timed and having to make decisions under pressure, what if you could just make all the decisions and see which one you liked best? which is a really clever idea, and the game's like built around that. It's themed around that. Like Max is indecisive. It's like the character and the mechanic kind of go together. It's a really inspired idea, and I think like makes Life is Strange kind of this little lightning in a bottle kind of game. And yeah, it was really popular. You know, it found its audience. People like the first Life is Strange, and I feel like really struggled to know how to follow it up. And yeah, I'm also flabbergasted. Like, this was the perfect opportunity to bring that time rewind mechanic back. And like, I also get it and very much respect to the decision to try to do something different, because like you don't just want to like do the same thing over again. But I feel like in every game they've really struggled to find like a superpower to give the main character that fits as well or is as interesting. Like in all the games, like the first game, I think you use the rewind like constantly. Like, this is something I was like, kind of reflecting on. Like, you can just use it while walking around. You don't, you're not prompted to do it when there's a puzzle. Like, it's like a more organically woven into the gameplay, and there's more puzzles to solve with it, And like, I feel like all the other games, the superpower is very like prescribed, where it's like, okay, like we're doing the talk to people part. Now there's like a little thing where like I need to use the power, and they're very separate. So yeah, like I respect the decision to try to do something different, but like I feel like that kind of misses the point of like what makes Life is Strange good. And yeah, like I already said, this was the perfect excuse to revisit it, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like the game, and all the games, in fact, past the first one, stick so closely to, I don't want to call it a formula, not because it isn't a formula, because it 100% is one, but because I feel like it is a negative connotation by itself. Like, following a formula in a creative work means that you aren't trying to do your own thing, which is not necessarily true here. But I will say, even for a franchise that I generally like all the entries of for the most part, except for 2, there is sort of a, like somebody dies who's close to you early in the game, and then you have to use your powers to do a thing. Like, it's following a similar, there's even like the authority figure who turns out to be like a piece of shit, and you have your power, and then there's like a more intense version of your power that you can use later when circumstances arrive, being able to travel back in time with a photo, to being able to take people's emotions on, stuff like that. It seems to keep repeating through the series, which it gets a little bit stale. So I mean, we're all coming around to say the exact same thing. I feel like the game would be completely different. The game would have to be rewritten from the ground up to include it. The game just isn't that game, but I wish it was the game where you got the time reversal powers back. It's just kind of sad to me because, and I will say up front, my biggest and close to only disappointment with the game is the fact that they didn't go this route. Like, I genuinely do really like this game. It's just, I wanted that back because it was the thing that set Life is Strange apart. Like, it got compared to Telltale games all the time. It's like, in a Telltale game, you can't reverse your choices. Now we're back into that, where it's like, this really isn't that much different just on the outset than any other narrative adventure game.
Well, and I feel like they also set it up like the rewind time power is gonna come back, at least in some way. Because like early on, she tries to do it, and she's like, "Oh, it's like an atrophied muscle, like if you don't use it, you lose it." Implying that like maybe like at the end of the game, when she like needs it to like do like to save somebody, like she'll be able to do it. But no, that doesn't happen. But like I also I like the concept of like the parallel worlds thing. Like, I feel like you could have used that mechanic in a similar way, where like in one timeline, they set it up different than this. So yeah, like you said, the game would have to be reworked, I mean, a bit. But like, it could have been like, oh, in one timeline, like you make one decision and then you can jump to the other timeline and make the other decision. Or like, like you could have done something more with it. And I guess this is another topic of conversation to kind of shift to. But like, I feel like my biggest disappointment with this game is how small the scope is. I feel like there's only like 4 locations. And I know the game was sold at a lower price. Because like when I was thinking about this game yesterday, I was thinking about this. So I like just was like, I'm going to do the thing I never do and actually look into it. And not just like jump on the podcast and blindly speculate. So I was like, did Life is Strange Double Exposure have a low budget? And there's no like reported like conclusive numbers, but people do speculate like the fact that like it came out all at once, it was sold at a lower price. And I feel like, yeah, Square Enix has their hands in a million different pies. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, Life is Strange is a loyal fan base. We'll give this game a lower budget because like no matter what they put out, the fans will eat it up. So like that's putting on my tinfoil hat right there.
Sure.
But like I feel like this game's a little bit of a victim of not getting enough resources from the publisher. I feel like the game has like is hurting for new locations. As it went on, I'm like, please, like you had the whole bowling alley section at the beginning, and then we've just been in the same like 2 buildings for the whole rest. I was like, please introduce something new, and it doesn't happen. So
they even bring the bowling alley back at the end of the game.
And also like I feel like it just feels like there's not as much like puzzles, like like I feel like there aren't as many like sections. Like I was just thinking about the first one. And like there are parts like where you're sneaking around the school and like you have to like use your time reversal powers to like get into the office and open the door from the other side while Chloe's trying to pick the lock. And I feel like there's a lot more moments like that, and there's like this very few in this one. It still has them, but they're just like way fewer.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I viewed it, I think it kicked in for me like in the 3rd chapter or so when I was like, they've really been getting a lot of use out of this bar.
Yeah,
like
the snapping turtle.
You're at the snapping turtle all the time for everything, and everyone meets there, but there's never more than like 6 people there. It's a very weird kind of like, this ties in a little bit to another thing that I have to say that I think is kind of related, but I agree generally. It feels so much smaller in scope than the other ones. I don't necessarily find it like, to you saying that it's your biggest disappointment, I put it at a lower priority, I think, than a few other things. But I agree, it does feel kind of almost claustrophobic. Mm-hmm. There's not even really an ability to explore at all in this game. Like if you go off the beaten path at all, you hit an invisible wall almost instantaneously. So it does feel like it's not as, but it's not as fully fleshed out as the rest of them.
It feels like it's being held back creatively a bit.
Yeah. And I think part of it, maybe, and once again, this is wild speculation that I was prepared to go on the podcast and just wildly speculate about. I don't love this, but it's a very subjective matter. This game, compared to previous games in the series, has that extremely uncanny valley like graphical fidelity where like faces look pretty realistic, but like not quite realistic enough to not seem weird when you look at them, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And it feels like a big jump from True Colors, but I could be wrong. Almost entirely based on the fact that I played that game on a TV and this game on a monitor, where I'm more likely to notice changes.
Yeah, I think facial animations specifically are better in this game.
Yeah, and I wonder if that had anything to do with the smaller scope otherwise. Like if it had a similar budget to other games, but they had to spend more of it on technology.
I forgot to mention, but there was like a Reddit thread when I was looking into the budget thing. People claim that this game, Double Exposure, is less graphically intensive than True Colors. They were citing that as like another piece of evidence towards it having a lower budget. But definitely, they've upped the facial animations, though. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I'm mostly going to be noting, I think. Because, like, I have, like, this is just how, like, brains work. I have an impressionist idea of what, like, the world of Life is Strange True Colors looks like. Mm-hmm. I don't remember specific details in like a newspaper stuck to a park bench or something.
Yeah.
But I do know that game was more expansive. There were more things in it. And this feels a lot smaller, and it felt like there was more detail to me, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, but either way, like, both of them are symptoms of budget. Like, if it is less graphically intensive, maybe that was a decision made to try and keep costs low or something. I'm not sure. But there definitely is something going on that makes this feel a little bit, like, off from other games in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess while we're on the topic of money, I do just want to bring up that this game I bought the game, and then the game has 2 DLCs, both of which are like clothes for Max, which like I didn't even change the clothes in the game. I just kept right clicking to move to the next scene. But
shakes me to my core. You got to pick the outfit you think looks coolest.
Well, I did that at the beginning of the game, but then it asked me to do it over and over.
Yeah, but there's different options each time.
That's true. Oh, well. I'm not, I'm not going to pay $10 for like one that has a skeleton on it.
Yeah, fuck that. I don't need the hot dog man t-shirt or whatever.
Yeah, I would pay $10 for a Hot Dog Man t-shirt in real life and have. It was a gift, though. But I would not pay $10 for an in-game Hot Dog Man t-shirt. But I did just want to mention that I had a note that was just right after all this other stuff, so I'm not sure why I brought it up. But I wrote, I don't think I've ever been less enthused about DLC than for the sake of exclusive cat content. Which is, it like throws up a thing at the beginning of chapter 2 that's like, you're going to miss out on the cat content if you don't do something. And I was like, I'm all right. I don't think I need that.
Yeah, I don't even remember seeing that.
Maybe you have like the deluxe edition.
I don't think so. I did get it on sale though. Maybe I bought the deluxe edition on sale. I don't know. I don't remember any cat content though.
Oh no cat content? What are you gonna do? Okay. We should move on though. I think that or at least from the subject of like the sort of uncanniness of the game.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the Life is Strange brand.
That's true. That is definitely true.
Do you want to talk about Max?
Yeah, we can talk about Max.
Because I thought it was interesting you said that you thought that she had like a different vibe in this.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like my first thought was like, man, I feel like they did such a good job of making this feel like the same character, but like 15 years older. I feel like the voice actor for Max slipped right back into the part. Like it felt like comforting to like have Max back, but like she's like aged along with me. She's like now 30 because I think this is like progressed in real time. So I don't know. I thought that was cool, and she did have some really good Max lines. I wrote down 2 of them.
Okay.
I really like the line, "Dang, I would have been fine with a Halloween with old Halloween candy and a Pop-Tart." And caked up Mothman goated with the sauce.
I, of course, also noted the Mothman because both of us have visited the Mothman
we
statue
have touched the
in
Mothman
the last couple
ass.
of years. We have touched the Mothman ass.
Yeah.
And he is caked up and he's goated with the sauce, of course.
So I thought, they added in some great Max one-liners to the canon.
Yeah, I think as a point of clarification, I don't think that they did a bad job of writing Max as Max. Like, I think that there is a continuity to the character that functions and is done pretty well. What my thing is there's a difference, not in the character of Max, but between the main character of Life is Strange and Double Exposure, because Max was an unknown quantity at the time. And so when you're making decisions in Life is Strange, you're reading almost entirely your sort of morality into those decisions. Like, how would you answer those questions? Having Max being a known character, and I experienced this on Before the Storm as well with Chloe, having choices being made from the perspective of a character that you have an understanding of, I think necessarily clouds that a little bit. And I'm sure that effect is different for different people, but I think that it is different to me to view a character that we've already seen before as a protagonist. It feels like a more established thing, and it feels more like I am influencing Max's life than I am making decisions based on my own experiences. So, like, it's not a huge difference, but I think it's a difference in tone and vibe, as I said earlier. So that's kind of what I was going for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I feel like that is like by design, like as I was kind of getting at the beginning, like it kind of goes along with the mechanic. Like Max's whole thing is that like she hates making decisions, and then you get to be the one to like do it for her. Like you are kind of a manifestation of her power, like, you know, essentially. Yeah,
almost a sinuous sacrifice type situation.
Almost, except Max doesn't turn and look at you.
That's true. It's not as literal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and yeah, it does feel different in this game. I think particularly it stood out to me with the romance options. Like the blank slatiness stood out in the first one because like you could kind of influence Max's sexuality, which feels weird to say, but is the case. You know, like you can romance Chloe, but there's also like a straight romance option with Warren, which no one goes with because he sucks. And in this game, there's a similar thing. Like you can, like Max seems to be like pansexual. Essentially, like they just ran with that. Like there's a male romance option and a female romance option, and there's also you can play a game of smash or pass in the bar towards the end where you can just decide that Max is into everybody if you want. And it does feel much weirder in this because she is a more established character. Yeah, I think that like it's so weird that I have as many thoughts as I do on this because it is. It's a thing. It's like an established part of the franchise at this point, and there's genre, really.
Yeah, I should look this up to like link it in the description or something, if I can find it again. I saw a video essay probably like 4 or 5 years ago, that was called like the bisexual button, and it discusses how having every character in a game be bisexual until you make their decision for them is like there's an element of like erasing the idea of bisexuality from that universe. And it's so funny to see that kind of played straight in Life is Strange. still my favorite of the franchise. And then have Life is Strange as a series get cemented as like the gay game. that it's like the game where all sexualities and walks of life are celebrated. And so for it to go from that in the first game to what it is in Double Exposure, where like every character is something, like Moses is gay, Amanda is a lesbian, Max presumably is pan or bi, and then like even the straight romance option is with Vin, who is also bisexual.
Oh yeah, so yeah, Vin is definitely not straight.
Yeah, well, at the end of my playthrough, he was dating Reggie.
Yeah, they were like, flirting in my playthrough. They weren't like full on together, I don't think.
Yeah, like there is like a there's so many like points of representation that one issue is like so obliterated in this series specifically, which I thought was great. Like going into this, I was like, oh, okay. Like, cause they really hung their hat on the whole, like, this is the genderqueer franchise of adventure games. And I feel like they've done a better and better job with it, like over time. Like, I think they just keep getting more, like good at including that representation in a way that feels non-patronizing and having it like as not as options for the player, but just as realities of the world, which I do really like. So that was the thing about Max being bi. Now I've forgotten anything else that I was gonna say.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting. I also enjoy that about these games. But like I feel like it's weird that like I feel like the people who make these games have the exact opposite problem as most writers like in Hollywood, where I feel like they can write realistic and likable female characters, but every single male character is like a weirdo or like a loser or like Because I got to the point in chapter 2 or whenever Vin is introduced, and he like he immediately is sleazy and he like hits on you, and I'm just like, ew, you know, and then like they just take it, all the way with him. He's like the male romance option, and it's just like there's a part later where you do have a conversation with him where I'm like, okay, he's got like a kind of charm. I guess I could see how somebody would be like kind of like taken in by a person like this, but like, man, he's such a sleazeball.
Yeah, you're absolutely hitting on the problem exactly correctly.
And then like in the first game, like Warren was the male romance option, and he was a super lame and annoying, and nobody likes him. And then in the second game, like the male romance option was also a nothing. Although I do think it was interesting. Weren't they brother and sister, like the two romance options?
I don't remember.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's an interesting wrinkle if that was the case. But, the drama. And then in the third game, in True Colors, I also remember thinking, which is probably the best male romance option. I don't remember his name. But I also feel like he was just like super white bread, though. Like, he was just the most like regular... And I don't know, maybe people are into that. Just some guy, some guy. But yeah, but then all the female characters are like diverse and cool and likable. So like I don't know, it's always that's always really stood out to me. And I'm sure it's influenced by the fact that I'm a straight guy and I'm gonna be biased towards the women anyway. But like man, like I feel like none of the male characters are that likable.
Right. No, I think you're just right. Because, like, I kind of agree with you as far as, like, I think Life is Strange 3 did the best with presenting two, like, reasonable romance options. And then they made the guy, like, the most, plain. He's, like, one of the best male options because he's just inoffensive on all levels.
Yeah, he's just a regular person.
Yeah.
And that's the high
though
watermark.
obviously he's modeled as like a very attractive lumberjack hipster
Yeah.
man, right? Like that's his appeal. But like it also almost makes Warren look kind of good because Warren is
everybody knew
just
a guy
like a
like
dweeby
that.
lame guy
Yeah.
that nobody would choose in the context of the game. Like Life is Strange's biggest problem with Warren is the fact that
He's going against Chloe.
is that he's not Chloe. Yeah, the game wants you to go with Chloe. That's where they've put almost all of their effort.
It feels like a consolation, like for like anybody who's playing who like would be bummed that there's no guy to date. Like I guess you can have him.
But yeah, both the male character in 2 and Vin in this game, when I first met them, they seem to be being portrayed as villainous, right? Like not good people, potentially obstacles for the main plot. Vin is confirmed to have thrown a cow skull through your best friend's windshield. And that's like hundreds of dollars, you know, in damages that he caused. Like, that's not a good look for somebody to date. It felt very out of place for me. But, like, maybe that was guided a little bit by my choices. But I do think the game recognizes the problem to some extent because they introduce Amanda like 5 minutes into the game, and then you don't meet Vin until chapter 2. Like they're like, we're just gonna put him off for a while, and then you don't actually make a decision until the third game, and you can choose both, which I have to imagine is an amusing chapter 5 when everybody's memories get conjoined.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure how that plays out, but I imagine it could be good. But yeah, this game has it to I think your original point is you said they're able to write compelling and interesting female characters but fail to write interesting male characters. I think this game's writing and the series writing as a whole, which is insane because it cannot be being written by the same people. It's different developers for one.
Yeah.
Is so hit and miss on like everything that they do, and it felt charming in the first game because it added to that sort of uncanny feeling. But because we've had it for so many games now, I'm like, why is 90% of this game puns? And it's like, that's part of the character of the series, right? Like, I'm not saying don't do puns, but there's like a lot of puns in this game.
Yeah, release the Kraken.
Yeah. And there are things like fucking Safi is murdered. You know this. You find the body. Then the next day you wake up and then you go downstairs and you say, oh, Amanda doesn't need to see a 2-ply monument to my sadness today or something. And I'm just like, read the room, Max. Like...
Yeah, I feel like
this seems like a weird time for this joke.
Yeah, but I feel like that's part of the tone of the series, though. Like that absolutely would have happened in the first one. Yeah, but yeah,
it's just so strange.
It's life is strange. Life is strange.
Life is strange.
Yeah. Now I think it's part like that was part an intentional part of the tone in the first one. Like Chloe's license plate like spells out Twin Peaks and like whatever you call that, like the abbreviated license plate spelling. Right. It's like TWNPKS or whatever.
I think that's right.
And yeah, so I feel like it's like an intentional thing. Like it's, and even Max, even in this game, like says "Hello, fellow kids." If you talk to like her students at the bar at the beginning, like I feel like they definitely realize that's part of like the shtick of the series, but like. I feel like it's because it's been passed off to a different developer, like been passed off to Deck 9, and like probably, yeah, you're right. There's probably new like writers, and then they have to like emulate that, so it's like being filtered, and it's like, you know, degrees removed, so it feels a little bit more forced.
That could be it, yeah. But it's I don't know, because my central concern is. I feel like they do such a mixed, weird job at translating that feeling in the dialogue And then they write these really compelling stories with a lot of interconnected, interesting characters that it's like that is clearly the strong suit of the series is like the character element of it as opposed to the actual dialogue. And it's a weird place for the disconnect to be for me, I guess. It gives it kind of an odd tone at times.
Yeah, and I feel like the first game, and I guess to an extent the second one too, like had the element of like the main character has a sidekick. You know, like Max is always able to talk to Chloe about stuff. Whatever the protagonist of the second game has Daniel, his brother, to talk to. And I think that adds a lot. Like both, I think True Colors and this lack that. And I think you definitely feel it. Like I feel like this game was like, I was really waiting. Like I thought like Moses was going to be that character for a second in this, and then I thought it was going to be Safi when she comes back. But it doesn't really happen. I was like, we need that character to like bounce off of, because like I feel like like all the dialogue with Chloe, like you get more you settle into a rhythm with the dialogue more. I think when there's another character there to like experience the story with, if that makes sense.
I agree. One of the thoughts that I had while I was playing the game is there's the sequence where at the end of chapter 2 or chapter 3, whenever it is, and you get the camera back and Moses sees the photo of Max with the gun, and then you have that moment of Max proving to Moses that she has superpowers. And I was like, this is always the best scene, right? Where you bring somebody else in and show off the superpowers. You have the scene in the first game.
Yeah, what's in my
with
pockets?
them on the Yeah, exactly. Like it's a great character building scene. It works narratively, and I thought was setting Moses up for that role specifically, and he kind of gets there. But because we have to do the light world, dark world thing, there is the, like, you interact a lot with the Moses that doesn't know and don't have any contact with the Moses that does know. And so it just ends up being kind of it's like a half measure solution to the fact that Max is like only ever in her own head during this game. I did write, bummer, Warren. The Chloe relationship is officially canon.
Oh, that's a great note to switch to, because at the beginning, let me know if you had this sort of interpretation or not, or if I was just being dumb. Because like at the beginning of the game, you're talking to Safi in the bar, and she like brings up Chloe, like, who's the girl in your wallet. And I thought that like that was canonizing the sacrifice Chloe ending of the first game, because like your options are like, we were high school sweethearts or we drifted apart. And like the way I interpreted that was, you are either telling the truth or you're lying because you don't want to talk about it. But and then at the end, and I didn't think anything of it, because I said we were high school sweethearts. And she died is like what I told Safi. I just told her the truth. And then like at the end of the chapter, it shows like the breakdown of decisions you made. And it was like you essentially like went with the Chloe died ending versus you went with the Chloe is alive ending. And I was like, oh, okay. You say if you answered we drifted apart, that means Chloe lived and then you drifted apart.
Right.
As you grew.
Well,
and I never would have thought of it that way in a million years.
Yeah, there was I can't remember. One of them is not a, like, I don't know if there's like an internal name for this mechanic. I've been calling it like the hard choice mechanic, where in the first game it's the
like
ones that
the
you can
pivotal
rewind
moments. Yeah.
Yeah, the pivotal moment part. There's one that I know. One of them is that, one of them isn't. But there is a dialogue option where you could just say she died.
Yeah.
In that first section, and I think the opposite is like we broke up,
Oh,
which to
yeah,
me was
yeah, yeah.
like those are both I was dating Chloe answers as far
Right.
as I'm concerned. Because yeah, I think in order to get that, you have to have said the whatever it was, like the other option.
Yeah.
But there are two of those choices that lead to like which ending of the first game did you have essentially being the answer. So yeah, I had the same thought as you. I'm pretty sure it was like getting to the end and seeing that they counted both of them instead of just the one that's a major choice. I was like, oh, this was more impactful than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I just never would have interpreted it that way, and I just found that to be strange. And then later in the game, there are once again 2 moons in the sky, and no one says anything about it.
I need to go back to the Life is Strange 2 episode and re-listen to it, because I have in my head this like sound bite of you being like, there are 2 moons in the sky. And it plays in my head over and over again in daily life. Like, it's just a thing that I remember so vividly. And I need to remember how you actually said it. But I did. I almost like during the scene where you talk with Diamond and she's like looking up and she doesn't acknowledge the 2 moons. I was like, I should just like send a snap to Andy. That's just this.
I also thought about that, but I was ahead of you, and I didn't want to spoil anything.
But I do like that.
Oh, one detail, just really quick. The moons in the scene in this game, one's red and one's blue, which kind of like plays with like the double exposed photograph thing. Yeah.
I think that I like the use of the power, and we can segue this into just talking about, I think, the story and also maybe the power as a mechanical feature. I like the use of the power in this game in relation to the first game. I already complained that it's not just rewind. I understand. Accepting the fact that it is not rewind and looking at it in just as a holistic part of the series. I like this read, like the interpretation of the time travel power becoming a universe swapping power, because it does contextualize the rewind in a different way, where it's like the 2 options that you have at any given time are like 2 worlds that you can rewind and go back between. And it makes the like, oh, there's 2 moons, which was representative of like the world splitting as you continually use the powers over and over again. And then seeing the 2 moons again in this one as almost a representation of it of splitting again, but then knowing that this time you can put them back together because you have more control over that like multi-world element to it. I thought it was pretty cool as like a sci-fi concept.
Yeah, it makes way more thematic sense in this one, given that there are 2 worlds.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's that. The way that the power actually works in game, I am happy with / wish it was explored a little bit more. You already talked about, or at least mentioned, that it felt like this game didn't have as many like explicit puzzles as the first game did, which I know makes you sad. It also makes me a little bit sad. I think that the biggest underused element for me was the pulse, being able to like see things on the other side. Because there are 2 gameplay elements. One is go to a predetermined spot and you can swap between the world where Safi is alive and the world where Safi is dead. And then there's the pulse that lets you see things in the other world. And it's used in the story like a few times, like 4 or 5 times. And I wished that there was more of it and more involved. Like, I know Life is Strange isn't a puzzle game. That's fine. But maybe some optional content or something where using the pulse like gives you a heads up. I know that there was one when Safi, disguised as you, breaks into your dark room. You can find her using the pulse as like an element of it, or like go into the other world and then use the pulse to find where she is without physically being there. So like I like that, and that's completely optional. That's cool, but I do wish there was a little bit more to do with it, because it feels like what we were talking about, where the powers are just kind of like there for story segments and not part of the main game as much as in the first game.
Yeah. It feels like it's like introduced and then just kind of forgotten about, because like there's a part later on where like you have to at the Krampus roast or whatever, you have to go into one world and then have Moses go and give you instructions from the other world, and like you hear them using the pulse, and they feel like the need to explicitly like spell out like what you're supposed to do, which feels like an admission of like we didn't like do a good enough job of like integrating this into the game, and the players won't be able to figure this out on their own. Sort of mentality from the developers. I agree 100%. I wish they would have done that more. Because like it's a really cool idea. Like the hopping between the universes, and like there's a part where you have to go into like Gwen's office to like find information. There's probably, I think there's even like 2 parts where you have to do this. It would be interesting to have to like go into her office in one world. Like one world, the office is unlocked, you can go in, and then you have, instead of like, and then you like maybe you jump to the other version, and then like, oh, she's in there, oh shit, I have to jump back, and then like the way to like actually spy on her is to like use the pulse, or like there's like, I feel like there's lots of, or not, maybe not lots, but definitely a lot more than is explored in the game as it is that you could do with it. And I feel like it's a fair comparison or a fair complaint, because like I feel like the first game did explore its power like that. Like there's lots of little puzzles and like little things that you can do with the rewind ability that like aren't, like spelled out for you, like little extra things you can do. And plenty
like
of puzzles.
Watch Alyssa get hit in the face over and over again.
And plenty of puzzles on like the actual intended path as well. So it does feel lacking in this one.
Yeah. The Gwen's office thing is like a big one for me, because there are a few moments in this game. The note that I took on this, I think, doesn't tell the whole story, because it was a thing that I kind of developed over time. There's and I always hate to use the words, but there's like an immersion break that happens at times when you're using your powers, because there's such a how do I structure this? They're so conspicuous compared to the powers in the second game, Daniel has telekinesis. That's a pretty conspicuous power. But it as compared to the other games, 1 and True Colors, it feels like Max just like vanishing into another world is more noticeable, and the game has you do it just like brazenly in public spaces all the time, in a way that I found really weird. But the Gwen's office one was the one that really kind of irked me a little bit, because you are in the office, you have a conversation with her, and then she's like, I'm not giving you any more information, get out. Like, she tells you to leave, and then you stand up, you walk to the other side of the room, and then you vanish into another dimension. And that would be fine, because you go into the other world and you search around in that office and you find the thing that you need. And then you come back to Gwen's office and she goes, hey, shut the door on your way out. And I was like, did you just assume I was standing here perfectly silently doing nothing for the last 5 minutes after you told me to leave? Like,
I imagine,
what an insane thing.
I imagine time doesn't pass. the same.
Well, it has to, because when she's showing the power to Moses, she's like, do something and I'll remember what it was and then I'll come back and tell you what it was.
It does have to be the same.
So it means that, like, when she goes to sleep in one world just doesn't have a max for at minimum 8 hours.
Yeah. No, that was one thing I thought about, was like it feels like it's just like not really acknowledged how weird that would be to like just be existing in another universe. Like there's a part, like you finish like a big significant thing in a chapter, and then like the new objective is like go home and go to bed in the living timeline. And it's like, that would be so weird to like go home to your apartment in a different universe and like just go to bed. You know, like,
right.
Like that would be really uncanny. And it's just like not at all acknowledged. Like you could just spend time between the two of them like they're the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, I'm all for like a science fiction or like a science fiction adjacent work not fully explaining everything about its like unrealistic mechanics. I like, don't do that most of the time is a good rule of thumb. But there are elements of this game that just feel like they're asking for that explanation. I thought part of the main story, because there's this like other Max and people are seeing other versions of themselves, I was like, the other Max is the Max from the living world. Like, you start the game as Dead World Max, and then you get the ability to switch between them. But like, surely there's a Max in the other world also, right? But apparently there isn't. Apparently that world had a Max up until the point where she discovered she could go between worlds. And then that Max just merged with the Dead World Max and became one person, despite the fact that everybody else, there's still two of them. Which is like explained in the sense that like, oh, she's the one with powers. She created the two timelines. So obviously there's like two, but I don't know. It felt like it was kind of leaning into that. So it makes you think about it. And I think once you're thinking about it, it's a fucking cognito hazard. And you're like, oh, well, I guess I was just wrong about it. It feels kind of like disappointing as a viewer to have like a theory that seems like it's watertight. Like it holds up against what the game is giving you, and then for the game to be like, but that just isn't how it is. The end.
Yeah, and I actually don't remember how this shakes out, but like I was really annoyed once we find out Safi's a shapeshifter and that she was, you know, like we trace her down like she's disguised as us. And it was like, she catches up to her, and then they're like having a conversation. She's all like, oh, in the other timeline, like I kill you. And I'm like, no. Like, no, it's Safi's the one who kills her other self, right? Disguised as Max. Like, Max would never shoot Safi. It's obviously not her. It has to be Safi that does it. And then I don't know if that's ever resolved. Like, do we ever loop around to like the Max shooting Safi thing? And it's like revealed why that happens?
Yeah, kind of. It is, I agree with you, but the game doesn't agree with you. The game says, yes, Max would shoot Safi, which seems extremely out of character for her, I will say, in any circumstance. But yeah, the way that the game handles it is you get to the point shown in that photograph, essentially, and Safi is just asking you to kill her, and then in the game, rather than presenting you a choice, which is what I assumed it would do, Max just throws the gun into the storm.
Right.
And then
like I'm not going to do it this time. Yeah.
Right. But like, why is there a world where she does do it? Like, that seems, I mean, it's contrived for the sake of the shocking imagery of Max with the gun at the end of chapter 2.
It seemed like one of those like time loop things where, like it was going to have to, like somebody was going to have to loop around and shoot Safi again. And I figured it was going to be the other Safi.
There's also herself. That like, there's like that sequence where Reggie sees himself at the Overlook, and then the detective sees himself and he touches the other person, and then they become a wormhole and get erased from existence.
Right.
And then no one gives a fuck about him ever again.
Yeah, I actually had forgotten about that, because this almost feels like, I feel maybe we're touching upon a rewrite in the script at a late point in development, because like that, yeah, the detective being unexisting, and the Max being the one that shoots Safi thing, like don't feel like they coexist correctly with like how the story shakes out, because like how was I gonna explain this? Oh yeah, because like I had a point where I was like, you had the part where like Reggie sees the other him, and then like there's the part with the detective too, and then that's before the Safi reveal, and it's just like after Safi's shapeshifting was revealed, I was like, oh okay, like Reggie saw Safi disguised as him, like that's what happened. Well, that doesn't explain the detective. Yeah, you're totally right. I completely forgot about that. It's just like they like explain away the people seeing doppelgangers with one explanation, but then they also have this other scene that completely contradicts it with the detective.
Yeah. And it's so because like the detective sees like a ghostly version of himself that's bleeding in from like it's like from the past is what it is.
Yeah,
like
which it seems like it relates to like the Max's time related powers.
Yeah, but no one else ever sees these things. Like you see them up until that point, and then after that there's never another mention of like time ghosts. Like they just don't appear anywhere. And it's not clear what the like why Max was in danger trying to pull him out. Like, I mean, I guess if she got sucked into a time continuum, that'd be bad. But like, there was very little other, like it was a impetus for a single line of dialogue later in the game where she thinks that she's chasing like her doppelganger, but it's actually Safi. And she's like, we shouldn't touch, because she saw the detective get sucked into a wormhole, but then touches anyway, and it doesn't do anything because it's not a time ghost. And so it's just like that whole concept is just dropped completely in the middle of chapter 3, and then we never return to it.
Maybe that's Diamond's power.
Maybe that's Diamond's power or some such.
Okay, so
thing.
Let me know how much you hate this or don't hate it, I guess. But like I had this thought while playing, and I was like, we've had all these games now in this universe where we have Max who has time powers. We got Daniel with his telepathy. We have who's the True Colors protagonist? What's her name?
Alex,
yes. I knew it was
Alex
an A
Chen,
name.
I think.
Yeah. Alex with her like mind reading, empathy powers, and now Safi with shapeshifting. And I was like, are we building to a point where we're gonna have like an X-Men thing, like where we're gonna have like multiple characters with powers like team up to do a thing? And I was like, or like a Life is Strange type, or not Life is Strange, Jesus, or a Stranger Things type deal where like they're like the government's raising all these children to do experiments underground or whatever. Are we building to that sort of thing? And then at the end of this fucking game, like we basically have fucking Max as Professor X and Safi as Magneto, and they're gonna fucking recruit other superpowered people to fucking fight each other. I mean, I get it because I had this thought. I completely understand how if you're making the game, you think about this, but like, no, don't actually do it. Like that's not what these games are about or what makes them good. They're personal stories, and some kind of dumb team up superpower extravaganza would be stupid.
Agreed. Yeah. To make a joke that only works if you are a personal friend of us. At the end of the game, Safi basically declares that she's putting together a special team.
Yeah, and if they even do, like, I almost like if I knew you had already finished the game, like I definitely would have like sent you a Snapchat of the Max will return thing, because that's like that's like a joke that we'll make. That's the name of one of our episodes is like Johnny will return.
Yeah. It's Johnny won't return.
Johnny won't return.
It's the Death Stranding episode.
Yeah, it's just like that's such
ironically,
a cliche.
of course, Death Stranding 2 exists somehow. So Johnny might return.
But yeah, I rolled my eyes so hard at that.
Yeah. I honestly, like, if I was like at Deck 9 or Square Enix or whoever has like the decisions about the franchise, I would have seen credits roll in this game and be like, that's the last one, boys. Pack it in. Because I refuse to allow Life is Strange Endgame to be like a thing that exists.
Yeah.
But it does seem terrifyingly possible that it will, based on what this game sort of like is putting out there.
Yeah.
I had a similar thought, yeah.
Yeah, if there's a character
and
called...
to answer your original question, I hate it a lot.
Okay, good. That's the correct thing to feel. But if there's a character called Two Moon Knight, then I'll be okay with it.
I'm back on board. The two moons haunt you.
I liked that Max follows Victoria on Crosstalk.
Yeah.
And like that they are like on good terms, and that like they're like peers and colleagues. I thought that was a nice detail. Like early on, like Victoria like makes a post. Yeah, I was like, oh, cool. Like Victoria wrote a book, and I don't know, I thought that was like a really good way to incorporate something from the first game in like an organic way. I was like, oh, that's what Victoria's up to. It does not call attention to. You could totally overlook it if you're not paying attention to the menu.
Yeah. I think that this leads into some other thing, but I do think up until the last chapter, and I don't think there could be a difference of opinion on this potentially, but I don't think that the last chapter overdoes it necessarily. But up until the last chapter, I thought that the ties to the first game felt very legitimate, as this game is a sequel, as opposed to like feeling Dark Souls 3 like forced, like a nostalgia kind of thing. And I thought that was, I mean, the whole premise of this game is sort of pretense on nostalgia to some degree, but I do like the usage, and I like that it isn't overbearing. And then going back to like the Jefferson room and shit in the end of the 5th chapter was a little bit weird, but I think was short enough and was played in a way that worked, in my opinion, pretty well to establish tone. I wasn't sitting there going like, oh, get a new idea, idiots, during chapter 5 or anything. So, I agree with you there. I do like that Victoria comes back, and I'm glad that like other random characters don't just like call you up on the phone and we're like, hey, you remember that time?
Oh, thanks,
when thanks, Max. Remember the janitor? He like really liked squirrels.
Samuel.
Like Samuel, yeah. It would have been a bit of a tone breaker.
Samuel's definitely dead. At this point in the timeline.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like the ties to the first game are like super well done, personally. Yeah, like that's something I was like a little bit worried about coming into this, is that it would be too fan servicey. But I don't think it is at all. Like I think like doing a sequel, I think, or direct follow up to the first one makes a lot of sense. Like Max did go through some pretty traumatic shit, and it is, I think, interesting to explore. And I think the game does that like pretty well. Like it's like it's introduced in a way that like the way it's paced out, I think makes sense, because like you started out And I immediately had the thought when I opened the phone for the first time, and I was like, oh, I feel like I didn't even realize it before, but like the fact that Max was a teenager in the first one, it almost kind of felt like it made sense that she like ignored the texts from her parents, but now makes her seem like she sucks super hard as an adult when she does that. But then it addresses that, like she's left her hometown. She doesn't want to think about it because of like what happened there. So she's very distant, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And like I feel like the information's doled out in a way that makes sense, and like her baggage, makes complete sense as well, and it's not too harped on, and she doesn't like complain about it, or it all feels very like well handled, I think. And then the stuff at the end, I wouldn't say necessarily that like it's earned, but like it makes sense for it to crop up, and I don't think they take it too far. Like, you only get the chair from the Jefferson room, like you don't get the full thing, which I think makes it kind of interesting. That does feel more dreamlike, I think. And then you get the bathroom where Chloe is shot. The callback that felt well chosen, I think, and well executed. Right. So I was totally cool with it. I almost kind of wish they would have focused on it a little bit more. Because it just felt like it made sense as a thing to explore with the character.
Yeah, like I think a good example in that like the first sequence in chapter 5 when you're like on campus and you're like looking for Safi. There's this sequence where you're confronting Moses, who is like half Moses, half Safi, and he's reciting lines from the beginning of the game. And I would have really liked it if they had done more, because they do ask you the same question again, and you have the opportunity to make the same decision or a different one. And I do kind of wish that they had explored that a little bit more. Like, do you remember the beginning of the game, and like, do you feel differently now than you did then? Would be kind of cool. But it has the sequence where you're going to open a door and it's locked, but then the blue butterfly comes in, calling back to Chloe. And I actually did like that, because there is like an establishment early on, like that Max does still have that connection, and that it's kind of haunting her. Like everything about Arcadia Bay is just like a horrible memory for her. And so I think that like having more things that specifically called back to it and show her internalizing it and realizing like, oh, maybe it's not the people, maybe it's not the place, it's me. It shows like character growth in a way that I enjoy, and I do also kind of wish there was a little bit more of that.
I'm actually kind of shocked there isn't a flashback scene with Chloe in it.
Yeah,
like I was really waiting for it. Yeah, I think they play that just right. Like, I'm glad she didn't show up, but I was really expecting it. Like, when I first saw the trailer for the game, my theory was, we're going to be able to split between two timelines, and the second timeline that we split to, like, Chloe's going to still be alive. Like, I thought that was going to be like the big twist of the game, and I'm glad that I was. Right. I'm glad that I was wrong.
Yeah. No, I actually think to just like put take it to a broader point, I think that the story of this game actually is very good. In broad strokes, at least. Like, I like with the exception of like the very specific mechanical things that we brought up, where like the idea of a time ghost is introduced and then immediately forgotten about, like stuff like that. Obviously are some missteps, but like as far as like the overall story, I did find it generally interesting in a different way than I found before. Because in all of the previous Life is Strange games, it really has been like it's a science fiction or like a fantasy narrative with superpowers. But the problem is always humanity. Like, a man is worse than anything that happens due to like the supernatural issues, and then it caps off with the supernatural conclusion with the storm in the first game or whatever. And I like that in this game it was more centralized on like, oh, like the whole thing that set everything into motion was because of Max using her powers. And I liked that because it's a sequel and we're returning to Max and exploring her story more. I like that they switched the focus to something that was more fantastical, I guess. Like, I don't like it better, but I like it a similar amount. And I think that it was well told in that way. And I think that using those callbacks to the first game as sparingly as they do is part of why I think it works.
Yeah, for sure.
I did just want to say like something that I liked because I liked the game and we've been very negative, and because I also wanted to bring up the scene.
Yeah, I hate it when we're like too negative. I feel like we've been like critical in a like more constructive, more positive way.
We're making complaints that we wouldn't make if the game was worse because they would be more obvious problems to talk about.
Yeah.
For example, do you remember the scene, and you do because it's like the entire focus of chapter 4, where it's the Krampus on campus roast. A pun I do like. And wish that I had a Krampus on campus moment in my college story. But you do the whole, like every objective in the chapter leads up to this sequence where you're exposing Lucas for plagiarizing his work from his dead student who wasn't dead at the time. And it's this whole build up, and then the reveal happens, and the game, and like, I don't know how it went in your version of the story. I assume similarly, but everyone's like, oh, it went great. Everybody hates Lucas now. And he's like publicly shamed and is like writing an apology at the end of the game and stuff. There were like generously like 11 people in the bar.
Right.
And the whole sequence is so quiet and like not like they could have just put more NPCs in the bar and made the audio louder. But like he's like, oh, you gotta listen to me, and you just kind of hear like boo. Like some guy 100 miles away. I don't know, it felt really awkward. And maybe speaks to the negative aspects of the game's small scale, but there are moments like that really took me out of the game sometimes.
Yeah, I was actually like, I agree with that. I was actually kind of confused though about like the like conclusion to that like plot thread, because like it kind of I don't remember the exact details at this point, but like almost kind of felt like maybe that like wasn't true exactly, like he didn't like just plagiarize her work, like then that maybe she like gave it to him to use like with permission. Like I don't like something, I don't remember exactly what it was, but something made me like question it, because it almost felt like the point of like that whole sequence was to like make you trust Safi, and that like she actually ends up being wrong or something. Like I don't know, there's something I wish I remembered it a little bit more clearly, but like something made me cast doubt on that a little bit, and think that like maybe he didn't just steal her work actually.
My guess is that you were led astray by the sequence where he takes Safi outside, and then when you're like, what happened? He's like, she wanted the truth, I gave her the whole truth, or whatever.
Yeah.
Which makes it seem like he refuted her in a way that would be undeniable to her in that kind of a way. I think what actually happened there was him telling her that her mom was like part of the conspiracy to like plagiarize the work and then keep it quiet. And I say this like, I prefer a world where it's open more to interpretation, because I think a little bit too much of the game is kind of cut and dry. But there's a a sequence where you like take a photo of the first page of his book and the manuscript, and once again, entirely possible that isn't specifically it, but he leaves notes on the manuscript that are like, this could apply to someone of any background or something. Like, he's making notes on how best to plagiarize the work.
Right.
Which feels weird. And also, after he wrote the book, there's no reason why he didn't just shred the old manuscript and just pretend it didn't exist.
He did not cover.
But then
his
also,
tracks.
like, why did I have to go to the library to find a book on the occult to find the day this guy died? If he's famous enough to have a book to be in a book, then he's famous enough to be Googled.
Right.
Why are we pretending the internet doesn't exist? Life is Strange. You forced me to be on my phone all the time in the game. So there's just like a few inconsistencies here and there, and I think I understand how it could have been like a confusing scene.
and I think you touched on it as well. Is like maybe that's just like what I wanted, is for there to be like more gray area, or for it to, because like I feel like that would have really reinforced the like Safi's like turn, so it feels like it would have made like sense for that to have been like not the whole truth actually.
Yeah, there's like a dialogue option at the end that you can pick that's like, Safi's unpredictable. And it's like, Safi is bipolar, I think.
She is
like,
she's a wild card.
Yeah, because she does swap a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like she can literally switch. She literally has multiple personality disorder.
It is almost like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, another thing that I just randomly thought of. They kind of set it up like there's gonna be more differences between the time. I thought this might be like a puzzle element, that ended up not being a puzzle element. But like, you find the candy that Safi eats, or at least I did, in some area, and in Max, there's like, oh, the name is different in this universe of the candy, which seems significant, and then they don't do anything with that.
I think there's even a pop-up that says like, like one of the objective pop-ups in the top right that's like, look for other things that might seem off or whatever.
Yeah, or like,
and I don't think that anything ever happened.
Or at the very least, like, it could have been like the way to like a pivotal thing in a scene. Like, you think you're talking to Safi from one universe, and then she offers you some candy, and it's from the other, it's from the wrong universe, and you're like, oh,
right,
I got you, you snake in the grass.
There's like 2-ish sequences in the game where you can give dialogue that applies to somebody in one world, but not the one that you're talking to them in. That's like gotchas.
Yeah, I fell for that with Loretta. And I felt very dumb after the fact, because I didn't even realize that's what was happening, or that it was avoidable in the moment. Because like at the end screen, the stats at the end of the chapter, it was like you mistook Loretta for the one from the other universe, and it was like only like 25% of people did that. I was like, oh, well, apparently I'm a dumbass.
I did it with Vin, but I don't remember what the percentage was.
Yeah, I was like, oh, did you see Reggie? And she was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
I was like, oh.
I just like got excited because there's a sequence where like I made what I thought was a risky decision to drink with Vin to try and get information out of him, and then went and found that book that I was complaining about earlier, rather than ask for a favor. And I was like, oh, I get to cash that favor in, and like chose the option. And he was like, what are you talking about? That I don't owe you a favor. And I was like, oh, right, because that was in the Dead World version. So I also fell for it. But I thought that would be more prevalent as well. Like similar to the candy thing. It's like, it seems like keeping track of it would be like an actual sort of mental challenge that could have actual consequences in the game. And it very rarely comes up. And it's a little bit, it just feels like It's like the part of me that does this podcast and talks about games like fucking like Donut County and shit. I'm like, oh, yeah, I wish that they had explored a mechanical element of their puzzle game a little bit heavier, because I didn't feel like the challenge was really there for it. And then I'm like, right, I'm also doing a podcast about Life is Strange, the game where you talk to people and make decisions. It's not supposed to be a puzzle game with like actually difficult challenges in it. And those two parts of my brain are just constantly at war.
I don't know, because like I feel like you have the mechanic in there, and like you do a little bit with it. Like, why not flesh it out? And also, once again, I think like the first game does explore its mechanics through puzzles. You know, like more than this one does. So like I feel like that's completely valid to think about.
Do we have Sour Cat's thoughts?
My Sour Cat's thoughts. Yeah, I have mixed feelings on this. In certain ways, this was better than I expected it to be. I thought because Don't Nod transitioned away from doing these games and Deck 9 took them over, I was a little bit worried about them tackling this game and bringing Max back, and like that it might feel too fan servicey or too forced. But I think they handled it really well. And at the beginning, I was like really loving it because like I liked True Colors, but I felt like it didn't get the pacing quite right. Like I feel like the strength of these games is like the slice of life and like really getting to know the characters and really live with and connect with them. And I felt like the third game felt like it was on fast forward, like trying to get to as many things as it could. So I was like, oh, this feels paced more similarly to the first one. But then as it went on, it was like the scope felt really small and like that was disappointing. So like I feel like Deck 9 are like do a good job with like the material and like the, you know, like this game universe and these characters and things that they've inherited. But they can't quite nail it, in my opinion. Like I feel like if they really combined the strengths of True Colors and Double Exposure, you'd have the perfect Life is Strange sequel. And it might not be their fault even. Maybe it's a publisher thing. Maybe it's Square Enix. Who knows? You got to put on your speculation hat. But yeah, for what the game is, I did enjoy it. Like I really liked revisiting Max. Like it felt really comforting. Like it just felt good to see her again. Like the character, I think, really feels like the same character. Like, you know, just that's like kind of grown up alongside me, you know, like it felt good to revisit the world and the character. And I think there was more story to tell with her, because like what happens to her in the first game is really traumatic, and it is kind of easy to forget that, you know, because like you just think of the first game as this interesting story you've interacted with. And yeah, like if Max was a real person, man, she would be dealing with a lot. So I like that this game did tackle that, and it was cool. Like, I feel like the power was almost there. I feel like I said the same thing about True Colors. They really feel like they landed on a power that like almost integrates with the gameplay, like the rewind, but doesn't quite get there. Which is a little bit disappointing. Like, yeah, like to your point, I wish they would have just brought the rewind back, because I think it is, as I said in the beginning, is really clever and is an interesting deconstruction of this type of game where you can just see what everything does. And they proved themselves like that's a really satisfying gameplay conceit. So yeah, it would have been nice to see it revisited. Yeah, it would have been nice if they explored the mechanics a little bit more. There would have been a little bit more puzzles. But yeah. So I guess I'll stop. And I like the characters a lot too. I feel like torn in a couple different directions, because like I like the characters, I like the story, but yeah, I feel like it's limited in its scope. I don't get to spend quite as much time in it. I don't get to marinate in it as much, and I don't get as attached to it. So like overall, I do think it is like weaker in all those ways than the original. So yeah, we'll quit beating the dead horse and say like I did think it was a good follow up to Life is Strange, but like not quite the Life is Strange sequel that I want in my heart of hearts.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel similarly complicated about it. There's a lot of those games where I feel like you have to, if you separate your game criticism hat and your Joanne and Cletus hat into two separate worlds and then swap between them, there is like a base entertainment value that I think that this game has that I was actually feeling while I was playing. It was to me, like it sucked me in a similar way that other Life is Strange games have had because of the character interactions, the generally pretty strong writing, and the tone of the games being this mix of like kind of twee, whimsical stuff mixed with the darker tones and the horror and the disaster and the science fiction, I think works really well, and they've done a pretty good job of maintaining that across the series. But as you already highlighted and we talked about a lot already, the scope feels small, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it feels like too small. And there's just not enough going on to make the world feel as real as it has in past games. And I think that hurts it a lot because it feels like it removes the stakes from a lot of the stuff that's happening. So for me, I'm like, I did like the characters. I think that in broad strokes, the story was actually really good. It's probably one of my favorites, just like on an outline level, but it fails a lot in the little details, which I think detract from the overall experience. And in only in a few places that you would notice that, like, only in a few places that are like sore thumb levels, I think. The sequences where you're using your powers in ways that are hard to blur that line and like disconnect from, and also the whole fucking Krampus on campus sequence felt very unreal to me. But other than that, like the little things, like I'm picking up on them because I'm looking for them, and there's a chance that you wouldn't when you're playing. So I think this is still a good game. But not by a lot my favorite Life is Strange game, and not like it doesn't quite live up to what I would want, especially when they took a big swing and brought Max back for another game. Like, this is an established character that a lot of people have an attachment to, and I would want them to put their best foot forward when it came to doing that, and they really kind of weren't able to, whether that was for creative or financial reasons. Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking... That was way more enthusiastic than I normally am.
I wonder why.
Yeah, next time, we're going to be doing an epilogue episode on Bloodborne. It's going to be episode 199, and we felt that was about as good a time as any to do that.
Yeah, it would normally be ushering in the spooky season of October, but going to be doing something a little different.
In honor of a lot of it different,
maybe. in honor of episode 200.
Yeah, so maybe get your head out of your... No, I don't know what I'm saying.
Maybe get your head in the fucking game.
Head in the fucking game. Start paying attention to the podcast. So yeah, I'm obviously excited. Bloodborne was like in the 20s, I think, of episodes that we did.
Later than that.
It was in like the 30s of episodes that we did.
That's probably closer to true.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Like an embarrassingly long time ago.
I feel
excited to go back to that.
Yeah. Like, I feel like we should do epilogues a little more often. Because we do have like a handful we want to do, but then we just keep putting them off. But yeah.
It was episode 34.
Okay. Fair enough. I would have guessed like 40.
Yeah.
I would have guessed like 45 or something. But yeah, it's one of those episodes where like it's not like a terrible episode, but like it feels like we really get off on some weird topics of conversations and like don't really talk about stuff that's that interesting.
Fair enough, yeah.
So
Hopefully we'll be able to
yeah,
smooth it out, have a nice epilogue experience on this one. Yeah, and until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com or on splattershot.pro. There you can find links to our email address, the Discord server where people talk about the games and suggest new games for us to play, our YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes as well with gameplay, and you can listen to any of our old episodes, including ones that we did on, well, get ready for it, Life is Strange, Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange True Colors, Grim Fandango,
The Wolf Among Us.
Wolf Among Us. Probably better example of this type of game than Grim Fandango is.
Yeah, whatever. Heavy Rain.
Heavy Rain, yeah.
We like this.
I feel like
of game.
in my heart that's a good episode.
It is,
but I don't remember.
That one I can confirm. That's one that I do like to re-listen to. The Pizza Choice.
Yeah, check that out.
Is the name of that episode.
It is the Pizza Choice. You're right. There's probably a Pizza Choice somewhere in Life is Strange.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Thanks for listening. Fucking make a difficult decision between the living in the comment section or the dead subscribers. Our subscribers are all alive.
Yeah, switch universes so that you can ring the bell behind Gwen's back before she tells you to get out of her office.
Make sure that you close the door on your way into the comment section.
I would have been okay
Goodbye.
with some old Halloween candy in a subscription. Smooth one, Max. Better
Smooth
switch
one,
universes.
Max.